Night should allow the weary to rest. But fences and security don't always keep out the future, as all the doors in the White House simultaneously slam open and then shut many times during a spastic moment which awakens the president. The president's scared family then meets him in the living room. The two girls hold on to their mother, the First Lady, closely because they want to share in each other's weakness and strength. But their weakness is more apparent at the moment because no amount of education can prepare them for this experience, and all they can do is babble as all their tears flow. And talking through a situation, even if it is only gibberish, is to believe to be the best approach towards adversary. But what happens when what they are facing doesn't talk back? And it is no mystery that the unknown is man's strongest adversity that they will ever experience. Secret Service members have entered the room while conspicuously holding their weapons. The president looks at the weapons but does nothing to interfere with their duties. They're concerned, but he feels better with the guns drawn. Historically, this president is against people possessing weapons, even if it is only to defend them. But he is unquestionably resolute about law enforcement authorities possessing guns. He would prefer that they use plastic projectiles or tasers on the criminal element. But that is in the outside world. This is his home, his family. So he wants to see his security bring out the big caliber, kill them in their tracks weapons. He will make a speech later to the liberal elite on gun control. But tonight he wants gun control that can protect his family. But of course he will fail to mention to the gun control freaks that the weapons were not just symbolically used this night as defense methods and deterrents to violence. He will admit his intention that the weapons would strike fear and possibly death, so that no one else will ever be mistaken as to what are their consequences they face if they were to jump over his fence and invade his premise again. And for the reasons listed, he is given his security full rein to manage any criminal intrusion, while he focuses on whatever else could have occurred in his home prior to his awakening. He wants to know if it was a tornado, hurricane, or explosion. The officers, though, cannot elaborate. The first family as a group moves into the center of the officers as they finish inspecting the family quarters, and as they enter, the officers seal off the human circle. The group is now moving cautiously towards the entrance to the living area, and then further on to the White House's protective shelter. The president anxiously wants his family safe while he can perform his official duties as the president. Without any advisors at his side, he can only ponder the reason for this disturbance. The doors in the White House opening and shutting was intense, but because the event occurred only minutes ago and lasted only a brief time, it was hard to ascertain its origin. Even if it was an undetected tornado or earthquake, why didn't any of the windows shake or shatter? Was it a weapon capable of firing pressurized airstreams at the doors? And how many weapons would they need to target every door in the mansion? And how would this same technology be able to affect even the inner doors safely bordered by the White House walls. In fact, some of the doors opening and closing had keypads where a code had to be entered for the room to be even opened. Unfortunately for hindsight, there are other things that could be worse than the doors of the White House involuntarily opening and closing, and that is the discovery that the steel door leading to the protective shelter will not open at all. Can God hack a computer? Yes, because God hacks men's minds every day, and it's part of his job. The face of the senior security agent froze, because what is happening on the Hill is starting to happen here. And he looks at the president as he looks back, both knowing that an elected president is now being taunted by a locked door. The Secret Service has reached a roadblock and momentarily has the entire presidential family on the floor with the full 360 of officers surrounding them. Radios are being used to call the security manager and other calls to outside electronic firms. The president standing outside the circle is listening to the advice of his senior security officer. Unrelated, though, as the man talks, are the images starting to appear in the president's mind of other people around the world running scared from bad men and women carrying guns and dying because of no fault of their own. Little black children are seen bathing in water, encapsulating the village's human waste, as a crocodile pulls a child away from the rest, and the other children, desensitized to the horrors of death, walk away just as dirty as when they entered the water. A sign floats in the water that reads, "Animal Sanctuary. Children are allowed to be eaten. We have plenty more." The images of Africa suddenly change to the rich kids in America that have blown their minds out with drugs and alcohol, or are simply mean little shits that respect no authority whatsoever because their daddies can buy any politician they want. But their juvenile or young adult offenses will not hinder their future, because the person witnessing the violation or unsociable behavior will suddenly wish to recant their testimony at a later date, or be determined a liar. Either the way, the young person is exonerated. And as long as their histories can be changed to a better light, they have a future, and this includes politics, where they will simply be recycled into their parents' elected office. Maybe after their election, the electorate will finally know the truth surrounding their personality. But at that moment it will be too late, because their daddy's money has bought back their integrity, and they will sue if anyone tries to impugn it. 40 years in Congress as a representative or senator, where they can help dictate where the country's taxpayer money is spent, and then a plush retirement that will go along with the wealth they have accrued. All gravy trains should look this good. But the president's thoughts, however misguided or macabre they might be, have been for some inexplicable reason thrust into his brain, even though they are not his main concern at the moment, as two women who are part of a security detail are missing. And this situation developed because the director of the Secret Service is one of the women who have had their baby taken. And there are two other women working on the detail that are also young mothers. so they are temporarily relieved of duty until someone figures out why the children were taken in the first place. Their absences, though, occurred long before this current event was ever taking place, and no one could even imagine the two events having a common connection. It is like a nightmare suddenly woke up. And as the fully conscious nightmare develops on the inside of the premise, another observer for the Russian government, pretending to enjoy a midnight stroll on the sidewalk skirting the White House, is suddenly jerked to attention because of the white and black spots appearing on the White House walls. Trudging through the snow reminds him of Siberia. But the agent's attentive eyes are looking close to what is facilitating the phenomenon. When a door opens, the inside light appears outside. When the door closes, it becomes dark again. So if the doors were to continue opening and closing a million times, it could come across as a light show. But the agent can only watch, because he doesn't know what relevance this behavior has that might affect his country. He just stands there to watch and see what else might go on. And in the brief period of time the illusion continues, it makes it appear that the White House was experiencing a spasm. This Russian, though, first appeared in America around 1985, under Gorbachev's rule, when the first group of immigrants was brought here from the Soviet Union. Some were religious and escaping religious persecution, while others came cloaked in their country's flag, but all came for the freedom America offered. Those that were in fact escaping religious persecution came because at home they were only able to worship Jesus in the secret places. But they always wondered who among them had the KGB eye. Glasnost, the Russian word for openness, allowed them to leave on their feet and not by a firing squad for subverting the other communists. But the Soviets weren't going to miss the chance to intermingle agents among the scattering flock, to keep close tabs on America, their enemy. So the unrepentant Russian brethren, in hiding, went about the task of helping to build churches, attend services, receive government benefits, low-interest loans, but even the religious believers knew there was something amiss with these converts. But the First Amendment didn't protect these immigrants, because the wrong word to the wrong person would end up in the Kremlin, where the continued well-being of the individual would be discussed. So for all intents and purposes, it is better to live in America, where its citizens are free, but never say a word against Mother Russia. The immigrants, in total, seem to have assimilated into the community, but in actuality some of them are just displaying patience until their country abroad gave them their sign. Tonight that sign has been realized, and their connections to the old world restored. They will do their duty and report what they have seen. Other late-night strollers walk by the White House, never even noticing that the event is unfolding. But what they do notice, of course, was the abnormal amount of street traffic consisting of government vehicles arriving at the most famous residence in the world in the dead of nights. The surveillance crew located at work in the bowels of the White House has turned all their cameras on to the individuals walking along the sidewalks surrounding the government estate. And the darkness surrounding the home does not hide the features or identities of those watching the phenomenon take place. The night vision equipment has no problem identifying the Russian agent that surreptitiously walks the path nightly. But what is extremely noticeable and disturbing is the surprised look on the agent's face as the event was occurring. An old metal chair with 4 legs has been placed against the surveillance room door, so the keypadded entrance doesn't involuntarily open again. It was kinda discomforting when the door just simply sprang open with no one to turn the knob or access the keypad. The 2 young agents sitting in the room are no longer the confidant protectors of the president, but rather private individuals whose fear has suddenly become hostage of the federal government. Send me to Alaska. Let me watch the polar bears. Because you never told me that simple, unexplainable breezes plowing through the White House halls would destroy tonight the secret world of surveillance. The government vehicles arriving are now being merged with private vehicles, and poorly dressed officials as well as military types that entered with every brass button shining has appeared at the door to the White House. But not everyone privileged to a quick briefing that has arrived truly believes that the event unfolding was anything more than just a nightmare. Unfortunately, these supposed men of military might, who have never been told why their presence is necessary, are not the ones that you had to make believers, because these are men that appeared to be the genuine article was not the true Joint Chiefs of Staff. But they appeared real enough that it got the cameras outside the residence flashing. Agents of varying countries and paparazzi are clicking away hoping that their pictures appear on the news programs of the day or in their country's intelligence briefings. Why are fake generals and admirals showing up to a seemingly insignificant event is unexplainable, except for the fact that the mystery of the missing babies is still perplexing law enforcement authorities. The president's children are not bunkered down in the safe confinement area, but rather sitting in the Abraham Lincoln bedroom, still sleepy and dressed in their nightgowns. Secret Service members are standing near and in front of all the doors and windows. The closet doors even have guards to protect the girls. The electronic warfare capabilities of the White House have been compromised because it did not detect this attack, even if it was determined to have been an attack. Unfortunately, as the president stands there and thinks about it, he couldn't understand what kind of weapon could do this. He watches the teams of agents as they walk around analyzing everything they can find. They had equipment to detect all kinds of residual energy, but the equipment remained silent. The doors are sprayed with chemicals to bring out abnormalities in the wood, whether old or new. Fingerprints, of course, are scoured for, but you would have to be the Flash to open and close all these doors at once. And if there were more than one intruder, where were they now? The carpets were inspected for unidentified footprints, but still to no avail. Satellite intelligence was also pulled into play when analysts inspected every satellite in the heavens for realignment or recent activity, but the only thing they're able to pick up is the activity going on in the White House. And that activity is only for the time period after the event had already occurred. The President, his service staff, and security members were the only bona fide witnesses to the events occurring at all. Personal cell phone cameras of passerbys had their phones scanned for proof, but even when the camera owner argued that they witnessed and snapped photos of the event unfolding, there was no proof on the camera to back up their claims. Computer analysts are also present from the National Security Agency to determine why the door to the safety enclosure wouldn't open and if anyone could have hacked the security code. But by the time they arrived, the door was sitting open after finally opening by itself. The President's children could now go into the protective chamber if they wished. But everyone involved felt that the shelter is no longer safe, especially if the lock failed again and could not be opened. But on this night, the Russian agent has an unexpected encounter with his past. Because his country's communism tried to squelch religious belief, but their efforts only served to strengthen below-the-radar fanaticism. Respect no others, because they are heathens to our views. So unfortunately, as this agent monitors the activity at the White House, his phone suddenly rings, and he obediently answers it, as if it is originating from the Kremlin. And for this he's partly right, even though the voice he hears is only from an old newsreel of a Stalin speech and talking in a straightforward manner he wouldn't have expected to have heard. What's happening there? And the agent's only reply is simple and to the point. Hell has arrived in America. But in the same breath he asks, can I come home? Unfortunately, the answer is not what he wants to hear. You are home, and we're coming to kill your God. And the caller hangs up. A suddenly subdued agent looks down at his phone, and he searches his history and finds no call originated in Russia. But even if the call was in his mind, he cannot run and cannot hide because the KGB, in whatever form these days, has long arms and a longer memory. And he doesn't want plutonium in the last drink of his life. He enjoys the freedom that America gives him, but can't understand why others less deserving than themselves are also being given freedoms. In Russia, you were given respect and some privileges for the work you do. But in America, you were given rights and freedoms for being nothing more than a citizen. He dutifully worked in hiding to worship his Savior, but the peasants here pray only for government assistance. Did I deserve to be born in Russia and them here? And the comparison in his mind continues. Our poor, though, had food on their tables. We didn't quibble because we are communist, while America, on the other hand, that has so much to offer, cries when they have to give food to their poor. We buy America's wheat harvest to feed the people America hates, but they take the money they receive and buy vacation homes with surrounding fences to hide them from the poor. Life isn't fair.